Good morning and welcome to the April 26, 2021 workshop of the Orlando City Council. Commissioners, this is the first in-live workshop we've had, I guess, since COVID started last year. So it's been a year since we've actually had a workshop, so welcome back. We're getting a little bit closer to normal. So today we have two subject matters that are very important: bringing Brightline to our community, and then the emergency rental assistance program that'll be on the council agenda later today. So we're going to start with an update from Brightline, and of course our city is one of the most visited in the world and one of the fastest growing. We're still welcoming between 1,000 and 1,500 new residents to Central Florida every week, so it's important that to keep the momentum going, that we make transportation one of our priorities, and transit infrastructure is key to everything that we have going on here. So Brightline is designed to reinvent travel and take cars off the road by providing fast, efficient, reliable transportation between cities. They are hard at work on the extension from South Florida to the airport, and we're excited about the future and the opening of that next year. To present is an old friend of ours, Christine Kefauver, who is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development, and she'll be joined by Mike Segalis, Executive Vice President of Infrastructure Development. Christine, the floor is yours, and welcome back.
Good morning. Would it be okay?
You can take
my
the mask off.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you for having me. Goodness, a whole year has passed, and I was thinking this morning as I was coming in, it's been about 8 years since I've presented before City Council, and that was on Sunrail. So I'm excited to bring another rail project to Central Florida, and thinking about its interconnected and driving the mobility, the conversation of mobility for Central Florida and the city of Orlando. So my colleague, Mike Segalis, he's the Executive Vice President of Development and Construction. So I kind of think he's everything from soup to nuts. He's from the planning phases, wherever we are in that project, all the way to the construction of Brightline as a whole. So thank you so much for having us this morning. Mayor, this came about because there was action taken at the GOA board meeting last week, unanimously adopting an easement and some right-of-way and some other terms and conditions that will come to you at a future city council meeting. So just wanted to let you know that was coming about. All right, so here we are. The opportunity, we're here to challenge transportation status quo. Commissioner Hill, I understand that you've ridden Brightline. I don't know if any of the other council members have as well, but it's kind of where luxury meets mobility, and really looking at ways to connect communities in a faster, safer, greener way through Florida. So we're all excited about that coming to Central Florida. This normally has an audio component, some great background music, but I've been told by your team we've not been fully vetted to be YouTube compliant on the music side of this. So I'm going to invite Mike to join me as we go through this real short video. You'll see what it looks like in South Florida in operations. So with that, Mike, you want to moderate here?
Sure. These are some shots of our South Florida stations and trains. We were operational between Miami and West Palm Beach starting in 2018, and then we shut down in COVID. And we will reinitiate service late this year after we've done some significant infrastructure upgrades to that track in that area, mainly to the train control system. This is the Miami Central Station. We had a major transit-oriented development at that station, which includes residential and retail, as well as the rail. And then the stations in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm are what we call inline stations. So they're a train station with the waiting areas, luxury waiting areas, ticketing, and in each of those three locations, we are in the downtown area. This is some shots of our phase 2 construction, which is about 50% complete now. There's a bascule bridge in Jupiter. And we're also adding 2 new stations. Those are just going under construction right now at Aventura and Boca Raton. And then Orlando. In Orlando, our station will be at Orlando International Airport in the intermodal transit facility, which was built to be a connecting link for all modes of transportation. So we are a tenant there of GOA. And the tracks have been installed through the ITF at this point. And now we are actively working on our extension to Tampa. We are in the design phase of that, so we're somewhere between 15 and 30% design complete. And that engineering process is underway. Also, the federal environmental process is underway, the NEPA process. Okay?
All right. Thanks, Mike. So, you know, we think about hospitality meets mobility here with Brightline. Mike talked about the environmental impact statement, the NEPA process that we're going through right now. We're working to also get cleared Sunrail all the way to the airport from Meadowwoods as well, because there's been action in the community to have that as a priority. It doesn't mean that that automatically happens. It just means that it's been environmentally cleared so that when the time is right for the community to take that next step, it should be a little bit easier along the way, which we're happy to hear as well. So big picture, right? We are working really hard here in Florida on Brightline, connecting major activity centers, major city centers, the Miami area to Orlando, and ultimately to Tampa. But at the same time, we're working on a project out connecting Las Vegas to Los Angeles and areas in between there. You know, you think about passenger rail in the United States, we are the only privately funded passenger rail system in the last 100 years in Florida. You see other areas across the United States that are really looking at higher speed rail across in other areas, and we'd love to be a part of those conversations, but we're very focused on Florida and LA to Las Vegas right now. So, but we're more than just a train company, right? We're bringing economic impact to not only South Florida, but Central Florida as we're bringing Brightline into the airport. You know, you think about 1 million trips using the train as it originally started, as Mike just mentioned. That's intended to grow, you know, assuming COVID didn't happen, right? It was really anticipated that would be carrying about 3 million passengers. And then once you get to Orlando International Airport, that number doubles again to 6 million. So it's pretty exciting about the opportunity and number of trips, which has its own environmental benefits to it as well. Comfort, you know, I think about business travel down to South Florida, how nice it would be to ultimately take Sunrail from my home down to the airport, transfer on to Brightline, get down to Miami, and be able to work the entire way because of Wi-Fi, accessibility, and so forth. But it's more than just that, too. It's the number of jobs that have been created. Every single day, there's about 1,000 people working on this project, all the way through COVID. And these are pretty good, high-paying jobs as well in the construction industry. And ultimately, there will be over 150 people working full-time at the maintenance facility that we'll show you a picture as well. So we're a business too, and we're right here in Central Florida. And when we talk about that maintenance facility, it was intentionally decided to bring that to Central Florida in the city of Orlando and not in South Florida. So we're excited about that. So we've talked a little bit about the environmental benefits of this. These are built by Siemens out in California, so they're American made. They're built with more than 40 different suppliers in 20 different states. So it's really pulling things together and thinking of it as being diesel friendly with some electric equipment and ready for service. So we see there that there's about a 68% reduction in emissions as you really think about a cleaner way for people to be able to travel. So this is what it looks like. So these are our classes of service you can choose. Select is considered first class, and Smart is business class, but regardless of which way you go, you kind of feel like it's premium service all the way around. Beverage and snack service, Wi-Fi, as I mentioned, and the ability to work along the way. What we're also doing, we're more than just a train company, right? More than passenger rail. We're also working with those first and last mile suppliers so that you have a very seamless trip. So say you choose to go down to South Florida, maybe Miami for business, and your destination is clearly not the station. You can go ahead when you book your trip, go ahead and say either I want to take transit or I want to take a ride share. And because the trains are geocoded, as you get about 10 minutes away from the station, it will automatically identify who your rideshare partner may be and let them know that you're arriving at the station, so you should seamlessly be able to walk right off. So it's really looking at ways to make this travel easy for the user. So you've seen some of these bullets before, but really that reduction in our carbon emissions, we really want to be part. Mayor, I know you're engaged with other mayors in Florida of getting greener and cleaner and so forth. We'd like to be a partner in that as we bring Brightline to Central Florida. But it's really the jobs that we're excited about here, as well as access and mobility. So Mike quickly, that presentation went over this map. So if we start from the south at the Miami Central Station, really a tremendous amount of transit-oriented development has occurred around there to Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. The investments that are being made right now on the construction, we're upgrading the positive train control through there. We decided to go ahead and use this pause in service to make some improvements along the way. As he mentioned, we're 50% complete from West Palm up to Orlando International Airport. So when you're driving along the beach line, maybe heading to the Cape, Port Canaveral, you'll see all that construction to your right, to the south side. That is Brightline under construction. The Orlando International Airport, you'll get a feel. It continues that Orlando experience that I think Central Florida is so well known for. And that station will be pretty fantastic. It's a shell of it right now, and that will get built out. And then our planned next steps into Tampa, where we already have some sites looked at, but not finalized quite yet. And that will use the I-4 corridor where feasible. That previous high-speed rail approval was to use the I-4 corridor. Some of that has been closed in or plans by the DOT, so we're working closely with them to stay co-located, and wherever there's areas where it gets a little tight, we're working through that with them. We're working with 3 different DOT districts in addition to the District 5 and the Turnpike. So here's another video for you. So this is a little bit more of heading out of the station going eastwardly. So I'll let our lead of construction talk you through this.
So this is through the Orlando Airport. We thread a needle through the airport, and then this is our vehicle maintenance facility. Wow, it bounces around a lot. This is over at the Cocoa Curve, and this is in the east-west portion on the way to Cocoa from Orlando over the 417. This is the alignment. That's a borrow pit that we organized with the Deseret Branch. We have 2 borrow pits to arrange for the fill that is needed for the project. This is over the St. Johns River. Pretty major infrastructure project, a lot of very cool construction. This is over the I-95. And then in the north-south, we're building a second track where there used to be a second track, but that track was removed in the 60s. So we're replacing all the bridges, replacing all the train control system, replacing all the grade crossings, basically totally reconstructing that track. This is the bridge at Sebastian, much further along than that picture shows at this point. Good progress.
Thanks, Mike. So I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to see any of that under construction, but we invite you to be part of an event in May. We're going to be kind of looking at the vehicle maintenance facility, and that is where all of the trains will come together. All the trains will come in nightly to get refueled, and all the maintenance will be done there as well. When we get to see, if it gets pulled back up on the screen, there we go. Oh, I'm sorry, let's start with the intermodal facility. And, you know, going back to the day where we received a grant, Central Florida received a grant from DOT, over $213 million for that intermodal connection. So it was always envisioned that that intermodality would happen right there. Brightline was considered at the time. Their South automated people mover, getting you up to the northern terminals, and then leaving an envelope for commuter rail, Sunrail, to come in, and then possibly another mode of transportation. So they always left the 4 tracks and opportunities to come in. So we're one of the first to get in there. We're right after the People Mover. And so that grant, everything was completed in 2017, and clearly COVID has created a pause for all of us, but we work at that station at South Terminal, and it is amazing when you go up into the A side, B side, particularly at midday, it's pretty packed again. So I think people are eager to get back and travel again. So that is a 1.3 million square foot terminal. And we're just happy that it becomes somewhat of a seamless system, and that interlined and connectedness is really exciting to see. So if you get a chance, I encourage you to, if you're at the airport, just hop on that People Mover and go down and see what that looks like if you haven't already. So the vehicle maintenance facility, so this is located on airport property, so we're Boggy Creek and Heitzman kind of right in that area. This is $70 million just in the construction side of that. That doesn't include about another $30 million in civil work that's already been completed. So the building itself is about 2 football lengths long. So when you come down to see it, you really do get a sense of its how large it is, but it's also state of the art. And with state of the art, you just need very highly skilled technical staff. So that will be the future home of our engineers, our conductors, technicians, and inspectors. So trains won't have to stop there as they go on to Tampa. They'll pass by, but this is where all that maintenance will be done. So we've talked a little bit about getting Brightline to the airport. So setting the stage here, that the airport's up on the upper right-hand corner, coming in along the beach line, through the airport, and back out along the Greenway off of the OUC corridor. We're partnering with them as well, co-locating in a very short segment along with Sunrail on this DOT 61-mile corridor, and then working our way into the I-4 corridor from 417. So it kind of gives you our path along the way, thinking that we would actually minimize impact and environmental impacts to the community by staying in an already disturbed corridor. And we've always envisioned high-speed rail in that corridor, and the state has been a partner in that along the way. So we will be paying for the right-of-way, a lease agreement, so it's not free to us, and so we're in the valuation of that right now. So we have some agreements. Mayor Dyer's been on 3 of the boards that we need to talk through agreements with. The first was the OUC board. I think you'll get a briefing from the Commuter Rail Commission. Tawny is supposed to do that this week. And then CFX, because we are using part of the 417 in that agreement. And OUC, clearly, because we're using some of their corridor. So we're, as Mike said, we're about 15% complete in that design. Stuff is still moving around, right? Because as you drill down and you start looking at some of the environmental, where you want to have your water retainage and so forth, that's all moving, but we're really trying to be as efficient as possible, both in cost as well as ability to get this constructed. So let's see. Oh, the FRA I talked about, we're working with them and getting Sunrail pre-approved through that NEPA process into the airport, which really will be an exciting time when people can make that easy transition. So the Tampa extension, other good news is that economic impact and what it's doing to connect that 3rd major city center or community through the state using Brightline and an alternative mode of transportation. You know, we think about coming back post-COVID, what an opportunity this can be for the community when people all of a sudden haven't maybe been sitting in traffic for a year because they're working remotely, they've not been traveling. This is a real great time for them to rethink what that commute may look like and or their travel throughout the state of Florida. So look at that, $626 million in taxes, both in construction and then long-term annual O&M of what we'll be doing here. So we we do feel like we are a good corporate citizen in the way that we're bringing mobility options and a change of choices for people and making an investment back in the state of Florida. So, we thought we were doing pretty good pre-COVID, some of the measures that had already been made, because we know that people need to feel comfortable in any mode of transportation. You feel most comfortable probably in your own vehicle, and we want to make sure that people are comfortable making a transition to a passenger rail project. Before COVID, we had existing safety measures already in place, a touchless technology, really using apps and your phone so that you're not dealing with tickets and interchanging with machines, although that is always an option if someone would rather the low-tech option. We also have low-touch accessibility, so that when you come to the restroom door, it will automatically open, assuming it's not occupied, clearly. And then our enhanced cleaning. We've taken it a step further as we open up post-COVID with additional air filtration as well as heightened prevention along the way. So with that, we are ready to continue the construction and eager to have trains you'll start seeing in later this year, next year, coming through. You have to burn in those trains, Mayor Dyer. I was thinking the other day of when we were in Washington, D.C. on Sunrail having conversation. We looked over as we were traveling, and we saw one of our Sunrail vehicles being transported from New York down to Florida, and it's an exciting time when you start seeing them run again. And so they will be operational in South Florida on the existing track later in the fourth quarter of this year. So if you want to go see it and you would like to go visit, please let me know, and we'll make sure that we get everything lined up for you to visit. And I know Commissioner Hill, she was very complimentary of the service that she received before it stopped due to COVID. So if people want to know more about the project, stay up to date. www.gobrightline.com. You can get up-to-date information. And as we start seeing more and more things happen here in Central Florida, that too will be in the media and the press. So anyway, that's the end of our presentation this morning. And open up any questions.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Mike. Commissioners, I wanted you to have this presentation and this information for general knowledge, number one, but number two, you'll be acting upon a couple of different things. One will be the resolution from GOA, and then secondly, the lease agreement from OUC will come to this board as well. So those are two aspects I wanted you to be aware of, the underlying circumstances, and have any questions you might have answered. And then the last thing is, just for general ratification, the OUC line is their line that extends to the Stanton plant. So it's the coal line. And there's a wide enough right-of-way there. They're not going to actually use the OUC rail. They're going to construct 2 additional rails within that same right-of-way. It's wide enough the entire length to do that. But I've made clear that my position is whatever we're doing, it includes Sunrail getting to the airport as part of this, because that's the only viable route to the airport. So if Sunrail is not included, that would foreclose any chance of Sunrail using that route. So I made it pretty much a stipulation, since we control 2 major aspects of that Sunrail is critically important to us in getting it to the airport. Commissioner Sheehan?
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. You guys hear me okay? I'm not taking this off. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, now I can hear me. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just had a couple questions. This might be some of the first information people are getting on this. Could you go a little bit into the trip duration between the different points compared to sitting in traffic?
Yes, so it's about a 3-hour trip from Orlando International Airport down to South Florida. So similar to if it were free flow traffic, right, which it never is, it may be comparable, but think about how you feel as the traveler getting there well rested. So about hour, which I don't even know the last time I got to Tampa in an hour. I don't know about any of you all, but we can get there faster. We are at full speed along the beach line. That really is helpful because we're fully dedicated right away there. So it's comparable to driving, assuming that you can get there as quickly as possible. But I also have found that it takes about the same amount of time to travel by plane down by the time you get to the airport, wait, and so forth. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting. That's what I kind of wanted to share with for you to share with folks. And you know, as part of our policy in the city of Orlando, whenever we're doing construction projects, we hire local artists to do art. Have y'all thought about any of maybe doing? I know it's not a requirement, but have y'all thought about hiring local artists to do art in your facilities?
We have thought about it, actually. We have a budget for art, and we have selected artists in South Florida, local artists for the stations there, so we plan to do the same here.
Great. I think that would be a wonderful, you know, thing there to kind of get our arts community going, especially since they've been really hard hit by COVID. So, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Hill and then Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Christine, great presentation. And of course, I have rode on the Brightline when it was first, I think, being thought of, it coming to Orlando. Of course, being a forward-thinking person, I went down to Miami and got on Brightline and met with, at that time, it was the Vice President of Corporations, Jose Gonzalez.
Yes.
Absolutely, and it was quite a great experience. I was able to get on with some youth from Overtown because you all were really involved with the kids there, because your hub there in the Miami station is in a CRA, and that's why I went to find out more about your partnership with the CRA there. And I was quite pleased to see that you were using many of the residents there from Overtown and your minority participation. There was a question that I had for Jose. He couldn't quite explain it then because of this great opportunity and the thought now it's going to happen, but at that time it wasn't quite decided with this Orlando extension and with opportunities not just from folks from South Florida being able to come here for job opportunities, and also UCF and Valencia. I was thinking that at that time you didn't have a student rate or economical non-business rate for even our folks here in Central Florida, Orlando, Paramore, or wherever, to be able to go down south to go to school during the day and also work. So I would like to know if you kind of continue to thought about that, how we can make it economical for everyday passengers outside of the business passengers. And there were another, and I'm going to work with Christine, we kind of briefly spoke about the on-the-job training piece. The mayor and the council, I have a Blueprint 2.0 job training program where we want to train folks for high-wage jobs. And this fits right into your job equation. And the last thing was you have a special component. It's not quite minority participation, something that I'm huge on, but it's the SBA and skilled and unskilled worker requirements that you have. And you go by zip codes, which I think is very important. Can you talk about a few of those things? I know it was overloaded, but.
Sure. So starting with the minority business.
Mike, would you step back to the mic?
Oh, sure.
Mike.
We do have a minority business program. It's we call it a DBE program. You're familiar with the DBE program. That kind of federalizes it, but we do have a goal of 9%, and we're going to meet it on this project. So we have very important minority business participation in the project. Key roles. The grade crossings are being constructed by a minority contractor. We have the pump stations, which are key to keeping the track dry through the airport area where we are depressed. All those pump stations are being constructed by a minority contractor called Form Masters. And the steel on the job, all of the railings are being constructed by a minority contractor. So something that's very important to me too. I've been involved with this community for a long time. fact, was on Mayor Hood's Minority Business Alliance many, many years ago. So this is key in our procurement. On the workforce side, workforce is, there's tremendous opportunities for young people to enter construction trades training, and it's needed in our state in general and on our project in specific. So there are opportunities. We have worked with Seminole Community College to develop this local hiring of apprentices to train for journeyman positions in fields like carpentry and ironworking and masonry, and we certainly want to continue that. We also intend to continue that dialogue with SCC and maybe others, maybe Valencia as well, in the hiring for the train maintenance facility. So do see real opportunities there. Sorry, your first question was about?
I think it possibly was about the economical fare for every day.
Right. So this is more a commercial activity than Christine and I are involved with. We do have a group that is involved with price development, and there's a lot of science in that, way more than I thought there was. So this is something we'll take to them. They do strive to, fill up the trains, and they're looking for, I know that in the Miami to West Palm, there were family rates. So the idea of what you're talking about has been addressed before, maybe not quite in the way that you're proposing it. So it's a good idea. We'll take that back and speak to it.
Thank you, Mike. And I would like to know, I know you're doing it all already down south, so it's no reason to recreate the wheel, but the zip code piece.
Yeah, the SBA.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so this is to assure that we're hiring workers that are in the communities that we're traversing. So in Overtown, for example, this is just a part of the hiring process is what's your zip code, and so that we can track and try to, tracking is the first part of development, so that we can track where
the fair and equitable.
Yes, exactly, and look to hire as local as possible. So yes.
I'll be speaking with Christine, and we'll be working on that. Thank you, Christine. Thank you.
Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor and Christine. Michael, thank you for coming in. And first of all, I want to compliment your construction team, Mike, on the fact that a lot of construction has already started in District 1, Airport, and through 3 major intersections with little, if no, interruption in traffic. So selfishly, thank you for that. I have not had to have many
complaints, right?
No complaints, so thank you for that. But I'm just curious, down south with Miami's or South Florida's light rail, do you share facilities track with them, or do you have your own dedicated track? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so in South Florida, there's Tri-Rail and there's Metro Rail, and then there's the Mia Mover, and there's Brightline. And then of course there's freight traffic for both CSX on separate tracks, and the Florida East Coast Railway traverses on our tracks. The tracks for commuter and for freight and for passenger, intercity passenger rail can be shared. They can be interoperable. It's the same gauge of track. We all utilize positive train control systems. We use the same dispatch. So that can be shared. Light rail systems usually are electric, so they aren't compatible on the same track.
And the tracks are different width.
The tracks are different gauge, so those aren't compatible, but definitely Sunrail is compatible with Brightline.
Great, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor. Thanks.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mayor.
Commissioner Stewart.
I'm excited about the idea about going to Brightline West. So tell me what the time frame is for that. That's kind of an interesting way to get through the mountains.
So Brightline West, our company's big picture goal is that there are many places like we have in Florida, where cities where we have major urban centers that are too close to fly and too far to drive. We're kind of in that niche of 200 to 400 miles. And so in Las Vegas, there was a project proposed many years ago, much like there has been here, for intercity rail connecting Las Vegas and Los Angeles. So we purchased the rights from a company that had already gotten entitled to run rail service, high-speed rail service from Las Vegas to Victorville, which is, in the plateau. It's not in the LA basin. And then we have gone ahead and are working on procuring the rights to take it down into the LA basin. So that project is behind our Florida project, obviously, but engineering is underway, and we're looking to start that as soon as early next year.
That's great. And the next question, I think I asked y'all last week when we talked, but when do we expect to take our first train, high-speed rail down to Miami?
Okay, so we'll be finished with construction at the end of 22, the end of next year. There's still risk involved with completing the job on that date, but we're 50% through the job, so we can see with clear eyes what's ahead, and we feel pretty confident at this point that we'll be finished with the construction project at the end of 22. Following that, we have to go through an FRA certification that is unique. It hasn't been done before, and that is called a safety certification, capital S, capital C. And that safety certification involves inspection of the track and testing of the track and of all the switches. So every possible route variation is tested literally hundreds of times to assure that the train control system is working. And then also the vehicles themselves undergo a rigorous testing. And so that testing will take place starting in early 23, and we expect that to take between 4 and 6 months. So middle of 23 is what we're anticipating for start of active revenue service. But you'll begin to see trains on the corridor. The first trains arrive here at our train maintenance facility at the BMF later this year. So you'll start to see some trains coming through, and then through next year you'll start to see them moving a little bit in the corridor. That's all testing. And then beginning in 23, you'll see trains that are actually running routes but without passengers, and that's part of the FRA testing process.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. Great job.
Commissioner Burns.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Christine and Mike, great presentation. Just one question. Are there any plans for Brightline to go to the convention center? And if so, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we know that the importance of the entire International Drive Activity Center with 40 million visitors every year. Brightline is not currently planning to go there at all. I know that there's a larger community conversation that has begun. I think Mayor Demings and some of his team have pulled together groups because it is an important connection. Whether Brightline's that right technology, and we're talking about trains that run about 1 an hour, and I believe that if I were the convention center and that activity center, I might want service more frequent than that. But we're absolutely going to be part of that conversation to help figure out if it does come up. We're going to lean into that conversation, be part of that conversation, but it's a larger conversation than just assuming Brightline's the right technology.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And we'll follow up, Commissioner Hill.
Okay, our second workshop is on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that is on the council agenda for this afternoon, and we're very excited to be able to provide this opportunity to our residents. You'll recall that the 2020 COVID federal funding largely went only to local governments and states over 500,000, so we didn't qualify for that. The county did and served our residents as well, but this time around we'll be providing about $8.6 million in rental assistance. We have an agreement with KPMG to move forward with a partnership, and I want to acknowledge that representatives of KPMG are in the rotunda showing they're ready, willing, and able to perform this task. We want to make sure that we don't have any glitches in the application process and the dispersion process. So we hope to have that application portal open in just a few weeks. So, Orrin, you want to give us an overview?
The right one. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Dyer, and good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I am here today to go over a few details about the 2021 Emergency Rental Assistance Program. As Mayor Dyer said, that in the 2020 stimulus package funded through the U.S. Treasury, all communities under $500,000 were excluded from participating directly in that particular program, including that rental assistance program component. As a result, Orange County received all of the funding allocated for this area from the Treasury, and they began providing rental assistance to all eligible residents, including those living in Orlando. When additional funding for the Treasury was approved late last year, the threshold was lowered by Congress, and Orlando received a direct allocation of over $8.67 million for emergency rental assistance that is separate from the program administered by Orange County. Therefore, it is now necessary for the city to implement its own program for our residents. Treasury's requirements to participate in the program are as follows. You must be impacted by COVID-19, such as you lost your job. You must have earned below 80% of the area median income, which, for example, would be $61,050 for a family of 4. Treasury requires priority be given to those earning below 50% of the area median income or have been unemployed for 90 days or more. For a family of 4 living in Orlando, that amount would be $38,150. And program participants will need to submit a lease or other documentation to prove legal occupancy. Orlando's program will obviously follow all Treasury requirements. Our program will pay rental arrears and current month's rent up to 12 months. Payments will be made directly to the landlord. Rental rates should not exceed $4,000 per month, and utility bill assistance will not be provided unless those costs are part of the lease. The program administration, the city is responsible for project management, marketing, and disbursement of checks. And it's been interesting going through this process, just seeing how many city departments are touched in doing this. Obviously housing, but chief administrative officer, communications, finance, purchasing, internal audit, legal, family parks and recreation, HR, EDV, all have had some role in the getting to this point and in the successful administration of the program, including the clerk, who's been very, very cooperative with us, and we appreciate all that. And I just wanted to point that out. And of course, you all, we appreciate your support. We're very happy to have selected for this emergency program KPMG with its partners, Indelible Solutions, who, by the way, is a city-certified MBE, and Tetra Tech, another entity the city has a working relationship. They will assist in the administration, including application processing, case management, call center representatives, and outreach agents to assist those with difficulty applying online. The technical online application is through Neighborly Software, who's providing similar software for many Florida communities, including Orange County. Based on our experience with CARES Act rental assistance provided through the Heart of Florida United Way last year, and data from Orange County, that they've provided, we estimate the average amount should be approximately $4,000 per household, which would assist around 1,900 households with the funds we have on hand. Residents, and orlando.gov/assistance. That's kind of the gateway here. Residents and landlords have been able to go to the city's website since March 1st for current rental assistance information, links to other information related to rental assistance, and to provide their contact information. And so far, there are over 1,100 names on that list, and we expect in mid-May the application portal will be open. Everyone on the list will be contacted and invited to complete and submit their application in for processing. We believe with $8.6 million in this grant, we should be able to serve all who qualify with assistance. And while we've not seen a specific dollar amount, there will be more rental assistance funding coming from Treasury later this year. And I just want to keep pointing out that orlando.gov/assistance. That's been open since March 1st. People go to that. There's information on this program, what documents they need to be putting together so that they can be ready. And then everyone who's put their contact information in have been getting updates and will certainly receive notice when they can get in and apply, hopefully in the middle of next month. So I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So, Council, to make it very clear, the county is administrating their program, and city residents are ineligible for their program. So outside of the city, residents will not be eligible for our program. We're taking care of the residents that are in the city limits of Orlando. And I haven't had a chance to tell you this, Warren, but when I was at the county last week, Byron mentioned to me that they had about 1,000 applicants to their program that were city residents, so they were declined. So that's probably a good source for some outreach, is to somehow contact the 1,000 that had made application to the county that weren't eligible over there.
Yes, that information did get through to me, and we have been in touch with the county. And so, yeah, we may have 2,000 ready to go. And that's one of the nice things about the system with Neighborly Software and working with KPMG and their partners. We don't anticipate that there'll be any breakdown in the system, that there will be capacity issues and such. We hope that we can deal with this and keep things moving rapidly to get people served and get this funding out into the community.
Good. Okay, I got a whole line up here. Commissioner Sheehan, then Hill, then Burns, and Stewart.
I'm so popular.
Thank you, Mayor. And Orrin, I just had a question. So this program is designed for people who may have fallen behind on their rent over this past year or so to keep them in housing.
Yes, going back 12 months.
Yeah. So this will go back retroactively, because I've had a lot of concerns, especially legal aid. Is we've been talking that while people haven't been able to be evicted, they still have to make up that payment for their back rent. So this program is designed to do that?
Yes, it's to pay rental arrears, and that was the intention of Congress. So we will pay current month's rent and then go back up to 12 months.
Great, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Commissioner Hill.
A few things. Thank you, Mayor. Orrin, great work, you and your team. I know this has been tedious, and we wanted to make sure that we rolled this out and chose the right team to facilitate this huge task, which is so very important. I don't know if staff or mayor and council know, during 2020, I've had in District 32805, which myself and Commissioner Burns share, over 1,000 residents evicted in 2020, and that's not including 2021. And then the next was 32811, which is the Carver Shores community, and then over in the Mercy Drive, Rosemont community, we've had an extensive amount of evictions. So this is we can't do anything about that, but here we are to help offset that wave of evictions that we know yet will be coming. So I'm just so excited, and I'm very pleased to see that we have KPMG. I understand a little bit more about them now. I see it come across the dais, but what a professional and highly skilled organization, and now to team with them on such a very important initiative, I'm quite pleased. And then to see the minority participation that's involved, but more so something that I had not seen ever during this COVID piece is the outreach door to door and to help people with applications or have them truly there inside the centers, our community centers, to help. And the call centers have been something that many of the residents have given up on, because most times when they call, the phones were busy because of everyone, the influx of calls of the great need. And then when they finally get through, the funds are exhausted or the appointments are exhausted. And so I think the way that you have structured and the team have structured this program, we're going to have much success, because I believe those wave of evictions was because the people could not get through, or they would call certain entities and agencies and the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And so those folks fell through the gap. So I'm just really excited for today and what's to come. And I just want to say I really appreciate y'all hard work and efforts, because it's nothing like my office being called. And this has happened. And I'm not able to assist. And their life belongings, which is little, right, for low-income folks, are on the side of the road, and children are standing there crying, and there's no help. So today, I believe this is the beginning of hope and help, and helping not to more so add on to homelessness, which we're still trying to overcome in some capacity. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burns.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Orrin, first I'd like to say to commend you and your team for moving so expeditiously on making this happen. I had a couple of questions. You talk about, there was a mention of the impacted by COVID-19 and the priority or criteria households less than 80% of the AMI, and priority less than 50%. So are those income levels pre or post COVID? Because when we talk about
they would be post COVID.
Post COVID, and so the verification process would be unemployment.
Yes, if you're currently unemployed and have been unemployed for more than 90 days, and then Treasury, their preferred method of verification would be to look at someone's 2020 taxes. However, Treasury is willing to be flexible on that, and this is one of the difficulties that we're having. You know, Commissioner, you talk about last year and this year and what all we've learned, and then these programs have evolved over the past year where there were different criteria and it's been eased up, and then now this program with Treasury, they've actually tightened it up, asking for income tax returns, and that's something, and then keeping in mind that came out late last year. There was a different Treasury Secretary, and then the program was rolled out, and then in February there's a new Treasury Secretary, and then the people running the webinars and information and listening sessions, sometimes they've only been there about 2 months or less. And so Treasury is still in a listening mode, and they're promising the additional funding that's coming to try to address any inadequacies with this funding. They're also promising to try to just things like how do you prove somebody their income and such. So they're telling us things, but you know, we have to make sure that you know, so somebody just can't say something in a webinar and then that becomes our policy. So we are working very closely, but as the Treasury people have said, and our goal too, is to try to qualify people for the program, not try to find reasons to exclude them. And we do know last year with the this program is 4 times the size of the one that we did with Heart of Florida United Way last year. There was no outreach component at all other than talking to people on the phone, so that was something we wanted to add this year, and that's something that we were able to get through KPMG. So, you know, we're making progress on that. So I hear what you're saying on this. Rest assured, we are trying to qualify people and not find ways to exclude them within the program guidelines.
Okay. And now, are there any flexibility, because I know when we talked before, when we dig into rental agreements, there's a lot of different agreements where, you know, some have a actual lease. So do you know if there'd be any flexibility in considering those occupants who have something less than a legal lease agreement with the owner?
Yes, the Treasury officials have been indicating to us, well, in fact, one of the individuals thought, oh, this is easy, you just bring in a copy of your lease, and then recognize in a lot of parts of the country that's not how things work, or that everybody has an annual lease. And learning that a lot of people, particularly the most vulnerable, are probably living in hotels, and they might even be month to month or week to week. So they've been trying to figure out ways to handle that and meet the program's requirements. But as I said, it's still kind of fluid on that, and that's one of the nice things working with KPMG, because we're not the only program that they're running, and they are KPMG. They're approaching this from, you're going to be audited one day and you're going to have all the proper documentation. So they will be working with us, with Treasury, to figure out the best possible way to address folks that don't have the typical certifications that you might be looking for.
Okay.
And not to go into a whole lot of detail, but there are 3 different reviews for the project. If you were to go online and you had all of your information, 2020 taxes, your driver's license, lease, letter from the landlord, you're probably going to move towards payment pretty quickly. It's those other ones that have more issues, and that's why there are 3 levels of review for this program. And then there's a monitoring level beyond that, where we'll be testing to make sure that all the paperwork that's coming through is proper and such. So it gives us a lot of confidence that we're running a good program, and one that certainly will meet all the program regulations and serve all the residents.
Okay. My last question, Orrin. I saw where there's a $4,000 a month cap.
Yes.
And it can go back to 12 months. So are we saying that an individual can get roughly about 48,000 assistance through this program?
Yes, that was something we decided to add, some kind of cap. Treasury does not require any caps. And of course, there are certain parts of the country where $4,000 or $5,000 a month rent is not as outrageous as it sounds here. So we picked that number, but our experience with the small program we ran last year, and then Orange County's experience, it's been a lot lower than that. You know, in fact, I saw payments as low as $800 for some people. So we're expecting, and I think it was averaging around $1,200 a month on the last program. So I'll be surprised if we hit that number.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns, for some of those questions. We talked a couple of days ago, and I began to start taking some notes after we talked, and some things have come to mind. One of them specifically is about those who don't have adequate leases. I've got 25 years experience actually doing this, so not having a valid lease means they're not protected by the state of Florida from what you typically would have. Somebody sleeping on somebody's porch has a lease, but they may or may not. be covered, at least by the least as a a sheet of paper saying how much you're going to pay. So I'm really concerned about that era because there's a lot of those that are happening, especially in our lower socioeconomic levels. And so we got to figure out what would be a good way to do that. I've got a partial solution, so I'm going to go to the next one. The next one, staying in hotels, the challenge of that is that those typically, as we can see, those typically have already been evicted because they're paying cash in advance. So now you have a challenge of trying to address those, and I don't quite know how to address those. That's where a large portion of our lower socioeconomic level have migrated to, trying to work part-time and move into there as best they can. But the partial solution is this. Have we done anything? Is there a way for us to do something to work more closely with Legal Aid Society or maybe the Florida Bar, the Orange County Bar Association to help shore up some of these people who need to have greater legal protection in this process? And so I'm not sure this money allows us to do that. So I'm kind of just tossing out, Mayor, to you, and is there some way that we can help support those people who are been working so hard to try to keep people in their homes during this time?
Yes, Commissioner, that has been part of the conversations with Treasury because they're recognizing that there are a number of situations that the program, the way that it's laid out, won't cover. And that's why they are listening. 2 months ago they were saying, oh, you're going to be getting all this additional money in 2 months, and they have not come out with any new projections of when the funding is coming because they have been listening, and they are looking to add more components where there can be counseling and other assistance that are provided to families, recognizing just the situation you just described. So
I'm crazy enough to think that there's got to be some funded partnership. I don't know how we can fund it, but we got to figure out how to do it. Between Legal Aid Society, Orange County Bar, Florida A&M University Law School, in the local area, that allows us to get people set up right so that so that they can't be taken advantage of by a landlord. And I don't know what that is right now. It's just been thrown in my brain for the last couple of days. So I'd love to sit with you and talk with you about maybe there's some way in terms of using some of this funding. There may be some funding here locally. There may be some grant money out there independent of this that allows us to accomplish this task. The outreach, I know we've talked a lot, doing all that internally. You and I talked about there's going to be a lot of comments, questions going to agencies. So we need to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what the priority is. They can do a lot of this pre-screening for us by helping us with that, at least in this kind of awkward time between now and it all being set up. Having them know they may be able to move some of these things forward on behalf of those clients that are inside the city of Orlando. I would recommend that besides United Way as a choice, there's 8 agencies that do financial assistance specifically for this, and 3 of those agencies are serving the city of Orlando. So they just ought to know what's getting ready to happen, even if it's with a Zoom call, to see if we can make sure that we can have that help. And the last thing, which concerns me just a little bit, is there anything addressing mortgage assistance in this same process?
Okay, there is no mortgage assistance in this package, and our understanding, this is something we've been monitoring, Kyle Shepard's been watching this for us in Tallahassee, and Ackerman Group's been watching this for us in Washington, and I know some of you in your work with National League of Cities and other organizations. There is funding for mortgage assistance. And the last reports I saw last week were that the state of Florida would be receiving that, and the indications are the state of Florida is going to run that program. I have not seen anything to say that they're going to push that down to the county level or our level to set up our own programs. If that changes, then we'll be shifting gears to address that. But my understanding that is going to come through the state of Florida at this time, and that they're going to operate it.
One of the issues historically with dealing with mortgage assistance and dealing with financial assistance for homes is that there have been a limitation to provide paying mortgage payments because inside of that is a principal. And inside that principal then is effectively a gift on behalf of the mortgagee. But what we have been able to do over the course of many years is be able to get mortgage companies to extend their lease if the interest was paid, effectively doing the same kind of thing. That's not a simple task, and I go back to my legal aid. That requires somebody to step in legally and allow them to say, we're going to pay you the interest for 12 months, and we're going to extend the entire contract 12 months. And so there's not a gift given on behalf of a mortgagee, somebody who has a mortgage. So anyway, again, that's as that moves forward, I'd love to be able to try to help shepherd that a little bit, because I've got a little bit of experience in that. Okay. Thank you very much. Or great job. Where is KPMG has done this before? Have they done this anyplace else, or are they working on this throughout the country?
Actually, a lot of their experience has been in operating disaster assistance programs, and that was why it was news to me when we learned that KPMG was interested in providing this service. And they have been negotiating with both the state of Florida and some other communities. They were negotiating with Miami-Dade, and I know the community development director there well, and so we were talking to each other. They did select a different vendor, but we were comparing notes about the ones that were out there and what we thought their strengths were. But their experience has been with disaster relief. So imagine your home gets wiped out by a hurricane or a wildfire or an earthquake or something, and you're sitting in a hotel room trying to figure out what you're going to do. And that was when we learned about the outreach component, where they can come in with a tablet, get your information, and then these systems where you can apply. And once you're in that, then they can work with you and direct you to different assistance and such.
I think that's great.
So they've set that up. That's something that they train for out at their facility at Lake Nona, and they have personnel. That's another thing too. We're like, how are you going to find all these people? No, I don't know how many thousands of people work for KPMG, but it's a lot, and it's like we have that capacity, and so that's what drew us to that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And that's what I was going to say, Commissioner Stewart, is those organizations that you mentioned are great organizations during normal times, but the capacity is what I'm truly concerned about, because I have referred many of my constituents to legal aid and all those, but because it's such an overwhelming amount of people right now that are going through this COVID-related housing issues, they really don't have the capacity. They usually have 3 or 4 lawyers there, right? And to take care of thousands and address those thousands is where we might have a issue. But I do think we do need to continue to have you champion that. But KPMG right now, I think, is one of our best choices because they have the capacity to deal with such a massive amount of people being behind on their rents, and then the displacement while they're waiting for a 4 or 5 week appointment at legal aid. Landlords are tossing them out, and so time is of essence. What I do also appreciate about this new program is the fact that you don't have to get the buy-in from the landlord. And that was another reason many of our constituents here in the city of Orlando was being evicted, because even if we had the funds, the landlord had to agree. And I think that was in the county also. But with these funds, as long as we pay them, similar to what I think you were doing for 25 years, Commissioner Stewart, that you didn't have to get the buy-in from the landlord if they were behind on their rent. They can show their proof, and that they could show that they could pay again, because I know this by heart, because I came to you about 25 years ago and got some rental assistance that I could pay my next month's rent, that you would be able to just cut a check to the landlord, and that would take care of that. And so I'm excited about this, because I saw a lot of low-income constituents in my district being displaced because it was an opportunity, I hate to say, for certain landlords to evict residents and not accept these funds so that they can increase the rents for the next tenant. And so those are some of the things that are happening in the underbelly. The reason we need an organization like KPMG with their accessory teams that are doing the outreach to go out and assess and immediately get these people enrolled and get them help and get that landlord that check to stop the eviction process and to stop the access to affordable rents. Because once that one tenant leave off of that lease, they increase their rent almost like $400 to $500, Mayor. And now affordable place has now become unaffordable in a low-income community. So there's a vicious cycle that's going on when we start talking about COVID-related housing issues. And I think, as I stated a little bit earlier, this is not a cure, but it's part of the fix. And we just don't have time to work with multiple agencies right now. We got to go out in the trenches and get this done. And maybe the next money, as Commissioner Stewart's champion this, and work with those other entities, we can add on to those. I do believe financial literacy is key and important, so people, once we get their rents paid up, that they'll know how to budget properly to become sustainable. But right now, I think we just got to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hill, I don't want to be argumentative.
Okay, go ahead.
I've never implied that we ought to take this money and give it to agencies. What I've tried to imply only is that our agencies are already in touch with people, and they need to have the education to route them to this system. They're already talking to these people and have been for many months, as Orange County and as our own system has been. So I'm not advocating that we do the other. I'm advocating only that they understand our process, so that when somebody is frustrated, they will call back to the agency to find out what's going on. So they need to understand our process. That's all I'm asking. I don't think the other. The Legal Aid Society is an important part. I will, Commissioner Hill has brought up an important point, and that is this. The intent of this money is not to make landlords rich. The intent of this money is to keep people in housing. So I don't know, is there an intent to have some type of condition once the back landlord or back rent is paid and that this person is whole, that they cannot then be evicted in the future? Is there some leeway? I understand the issue with payment, but Commissioner Hill is right. We would pay back payment for a client only if the condition was that they wouldn't get kicked out on the street. Is there some way that we can make sure that these people are continuing to have assurance of housing, as opposed to people who are just making the landlord rich?
Well, we did not put any additional restrictions on landlords. Our understanding last year from Orange County, who did have such a criteria on their program, that kept a lot of landlords from participating in the program. And then, you know, there's a lot of pieces in our system that need to be addressed. We're trying to do this one to help people stay in their units. You're going to be seeing me a lot this year. There are additional funds coming that provide a number of different types of assistance, whether it's for the homeless, and for renters. I don't think you'll be seeing me on the mortgage side, although we always provide housing counseling and other programs like that. But maybe it is something where we can expand some of the services that are offered. And one of the things, too, you talk about reaching out to organizations. We'll be reaching out to social service agencies, but also the Landlords Association, and trying to have a dialogue with them as well, so that, just to hear their side of the story, too. But there's going to be disruptions in our housing system that the pandemic has caused, and it's going to take a while before we can get things back to what I would
I think it's
consider
great.
normal.
You mentioned, I want to make sure we share with the community that only 10% of the total money can go into administration, so 90% has to actually go into paying for housing.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And we're actually, based upon this idea, we're actually less than the 10%, as far as I understand. Is that correct?
What we're committing to with both the neighborly software and KPMG is less than the 10%. And that's why I mentioned that the different city departments are stepping up to fill any gaps to make sure this program runs correctly. So, we're working on that. There are still some unknowns with this, but we managed to work through the little program we had last year, and we'll work through this one and the future ones as well, and we'll communicate with you all. I just want to mention that we are excited to get started, because this is a first step in trying to help, because most landlords, I think, want to keep their tenants, and we want to get that stability and security out there for people. And I know that KPMG was even going to come over today. They may be downstairs. I told them they couldn't get into council chambers, but they're excited to get started too, and we will be starting officially assuming that you all can favorably consider the council item. We plan to start tomorrow, but I mean, we've got a lot of preliminary work and things already put together, so we can get this moving quickly.
I guess the good news with the timing is that everybody should have had their 2020 taxes done in about 3 weeks, so they should have that.
Yeah, that's one plus on this, getting started when we are.
I think Commissioner Burns has one more question or comment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One question. It states that the past due rent plus the current month's rent, so you can pay the arrears plus the current month. Now, is this a one-time opportunity? So say after they get the past due rent, that 1 month, say 4 months from now, they're still, suffering from some of the same financial issues. Do they have the opportunity to come back and get those 3 or 4 months?
Commissioner, we're hoping, I think, that 4 months from now we'll have given out the full amount, and the goal to have it done by September, something like that.
Yeah, our intent would be to try to serve everybody. The last program that we did have, we served, I think, 556 people, and there were still people waiting, and we didn't provide additional assistance to anyone on that one. So the hope with this would be to get to everybody that's in need. And then we're hoping there will be another program that will start then that will take us on through the end of this year and into next year. And I'm sorry I don't have more information for you, but Treasury has promised, and this was part of the Relief Act that was approved just a couple months ago. There was to be additional funding for the rental program, and then we were to get half of it. They were saying in 2 months, but that was 2 months ago, and then the other half in 12 months from then. So that would be a year from now, so whenever that starts. And that's what I say, we haven't gotten any real additional information, don't know what the dollar amount is. I'm thinking it's still around that 8 million figure, but might be 6, might be 10, I don't know. And that's where a lot of these changes may come in, and just some of the issues that you've brought up today hopefully will be addressed better in the next tranche of funding that's available.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Hill?
Yeah, Mayor, you brought something up that I asked Orrin about and said that there's some discretion in KPMG, and neither is the city trying to deny anyone. Again, I'll say this is why this outreach agent piece is really, really important in this factor is, Mayor, and that's anywhere throughout the city, most places, especially in our lower income, everybody haven't done their taxes, right? There's some day laborers and people of that nature that probably haven't, they've paid their bills, but haven't done 19, 18 taxes, but they've been working. What do we do about those folks? I mean, or, and I know I spoke with you about it.
Yeah, well, as I've said, we look at.
But if they got a check stub or lease or something of that nature versus their 2020, in all air transparency, I couldn't qualify because I haven't done my taxes yet because of the extension.
Yeah, well, that's, as I say, we'll work with Treasury and KPMG to see what leeway we have in the program and still meet the program requirements. But our goal is to serve the applicant, not just say, well, you don't have this, so you're out.
Okay.
We'll see where that takes us on
Yeah,
this.
and I knew the answer to that. I spoke with you and you assured me of that. I just wanted those that might be tuning in to understand that that is not going to be the all in all that we're going to turn folks away because they haven't quite yet filed their 2020, that you all have been forward thinking, and what we want to do is help make sure that folks aren't on the streets of Orlando that are trying to do the best they can to get through COVID. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Orrin, get ready to get to work bright and early tomorrow morning.
I'm on it.
Nice haircut.
Well, I got to tell you, Commissioner Stewart, he told me if I didn't get it cut, he was going to cut it today, so.
Thank you. Good presentation.
Thank
Okay,
you.
that concludes our workshop for today.
Orange TV,